The certified letter arrived on a Monday morning that smelled like fresh mountain rain and tasted like war. Cease and desist from all unauthorized lake access. 23 pages of legal threats for using water. I owned every drop of... I'm Connor Blackwood, third-generation land surveyor who inherited 3,200 acres of Colorado wilderness surrounding what 892 homeowners now call Emerald Lake. What they don't know is that my great-grandfather's 1924 deed grants me exclusive water rights to every single drop. And their 38-year HOA built a $73 million empire on property they never legally owned. This happened between March 2024 and October 2024. Every detail is real. Every document is filed with Summit County. By the time you finish reading this, you'll understand why the most dangerous opponent isn't someone who breaks the law. It's someone who studies just enough law to believe they're untouchable. The morning mist still rises off Emerald Lake like it did a century ago when my great-grandfather William Blackwood first surveyed these mountains. That's when Summit County was nothing but mining camps and broken dreams. William bought 3,200 acres for $8,000. Securing mineral rights, and most importantly, complete water rights through a federal land patent signed by President Calvin Coolidge himself. I thought inheriting this property would heal me after my divorce. 22 years of marriage dissolved in lawyer fees and arguments that left me questioning everything. The timber operation I'd built from nothing got split down the middle. My confidence in human decency got shredded worse than any legal document. Then, this inheritance arrived, like salvation. What I didn't expect was meeting Stephanie Caldwell and her army of regulations. Back in 1986, a developer called Summit Vista Properties started building luxury homes around the lake's perimeter. Beautiful construction. I'll admit, million-dollar views with private docks and landscaping that rolled down to water like carpet. By 1992, they'd incorporated the Emerald Shores Homeowners Association. 143 homes. Monthly fees of $360 per household. Fast forward 38 years. 892 homeowners paying into a community averaging $1.4 million per property. Average household income hitting 6 figures. Cars worth more than most people's annual salary. Then there's Stephanie herself, 61 years old. Perfectly maintained platinum blonde hair that never moves in mountain wind. Always carrying an iPad like it contains nuclear launch codes. Drives a white Lexus RX with vanity plates, reading Emerald. One because subtlety apparently offended her aesthetic sensibilities. Stephanie has been HOA president for 9 consecutive years. Before that, corporate compliance director at a pharmaceutical company, which explains her love of rules and her infamous 52-page community standards manual covering everything from mailbox fonts to approved dog breeds. The crunch of fresh asphalt under my truck tires should have warned me something had changed. Instead of great-grandfather's old dirt road, I found a brand new electronic gate, keypad, security cameras, guard booth that definitely wasn't there in 1924. Sorry, sir. Private property, the security guard said. Kid couldn't have been 20. HOA members only. That's when Stephanie materialized. Designer heels clicking on fresh pavement as she approached my Ford, eyes narrowing as she assessed my appearance. Flannel shirt, faded jeans. Steel-toed boots still muddy from my last surveying job. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the public access point 40 miles south, she said. Voice carrying that particular condescension reserved for people she deemed beneath community standards. We've had issues with certain undesirable elements. Undesirable elements. I pulled out great-grandfather's deed. Original 1924 document in protective sleeve. Ma'am, I own the water rights to this entire lake. She glanced at the century-old paper like I'd shown her a grocery receipt. That old document doesn't supersede our community standards. This is a private gated community with proper security protocols. The guard was already reaching for his radio. Should I call sheriff for trespassing? Miss Caldwell, as I prepared to leave peacefully, I noticed something that made my surveyor instincts kick in. Construction crews down by shoreline. Heavy equipment. Concrete forms. They were building what looked like a new boat launch directly into my lake. They'd made their first mistake. They had no idea how many more they were about to make. 3 days later, the certified letter arrived that made my coffee taste like copper, and defeat, cease and desist screamed across legal letterhead that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Stephanie had hired Patterson, Weber, and Associates, the kind of law firm charging $450 per hour to explain why you can't breathe without permission. 23 pages of pure legal intimidation, claiming the HOA had adverse possession rights after 38 years of continuous, open, and notorious use of my lake. Adverse possession. I'd studied enough property law during surveying certification to understand what that meant. Steal something long enough, and eventually, law says you can keep it. They were threatening $7,500 daily for any unauthorized lake use. Included thick evidence packet, homeowner testimonies, photographs, financial records showing decades of peaceful lake access without interference. Because my family hadn't been there to interfere, my hand reached for phone. Call their law firm right now. Demand explanation. Threaten countersuit. Thumb hovering over number. Then I stopped. Hand was shaking. Not from fear, from rage so pure it made my vision narrow. What would I accomplish? Screaming at attorneys who'd just bill Stephanie for the pleasure of listening to my anger escalating before I understood full scope of their legal position. For first time since this started, I realized how close I was to destroying my own case. One wrong move, one emotional phone call, one moment of letting fury override strategy, I could undermine everything great-grandfather had built. I put phone down, took 3 deep breaths the way my father taught me when surveying got frustrating, started thinking like professional instead of victim. Time to visit my favorite place, the courthouse basement. That musty smell of old paper and institutional neglect hit me as I descended into archives. Fluorescent lights buzzing like dying insects overhead. But down there in those dusty filing cabinets, I struck gold that would have made great-grandfather proud. The original 1924 land patent, signed by Calvin Coolidge himself, granting William Blackwood all surface waters within described boundaries. Not lake access, not water privileges, all of it. From my surveying background, I understood something most people miss. Water rights and property ownership are separate legal entities. You can own lakefront property without owning single drop of water lapping at your shore. Here's what Stephanie's expensive lawyers either missed or hoped I wouldn't find. The HOA's 1987 incorporation documents never mentioned water rights. Not once. Some Vista properties had sold lakefront lots but kept 0 water claims for themselves, meaning they had nothing to transfer to HOA. Every homeowner's deed included same clause, subject to existing easements and water rights. They'd been buying lakefront property with giant legal asterisk they'd never bothered reading. Martha, the county clerk who'd been filing documents since Carter administration, found this situation absolutely hilarious. 4th water rights case this year. She chuckled, pulling folders thick as dictionaries. These HOAs think their gates give them ownership of everything inside perimeter. Spoiler alert, they don't. I spent afternoon documenting their illegal modifications. Every no trespassing sign, GPS coordinated and photographed. Their unpermitted boat launch construction captured from multiple angles. They were digging into my lake bottom without water rights. Environmental clearance, or basic construction permits. But real discovery made my hands shake as I photographed evidence. They'd been charging members lake access fees, $2,400 annually. 892 homeowners times $2,400 times 38 years. We're talking about approximately $81 million in fees collected for access to property they never legally controlled. They'd built an entire business model on my family's water. I filed complaints with County Water Board requesting immediate cessation of all lake construction. Copied editor at Summit Valley News because government agencies move faster when reporters start asking questions. Sound of gravel crunching under expensive tires announced Stephanie's response next morning. Emergency HOA meeting called within 72 hours. Sympathetic homeowner leaked agenda. Security concerns regarding outside agitator and legal options for protecting community assets. She'd started questioning neighbors about my suspicious activities. Convinced I was planning sabotage. Paranoia was almost entertaining to watch from across lake with my surveying binoculars. Stephanie also hired Sentinel Protection Services, residential community security company. Fancy name for intimidation services targeting people who couldn't afford lawyers. Their newest security guard was Tyler, 19-year-old college sophomore who kept asking about surveying careers. This gig just pays for textbooks. He confided during my morning documentation routine. Ms. Caldwell called 4 times yesterday asking if you'd shown up. She seems really stressed. Meanwhile, she was distributing flyers throughout community. Protect our property values from legal predators. 14 homeowners signed her petition, though I suspected most had no idea what they were actually supporting. Construction crews kept destroying lake bottom that had been pristine for centuries. Diesel exhaust choking mountain air that used to smell like heaven. Every day they worked was another day of evidence I was collecting. I had something Stephanie didn't understand. Patience born from 3 generations of surveyors who understood that land always tells truth. But only if you know how to listen. They thought one intimidating legal letter would send me running. Instead, they'd just provided documentation of 38 years of theft, wrapped in nice legal bow, delivered to my doorstep with return receipt. Stephanie was about to discover that threatening surveyor with fraudulent documents was like challenging Bloodhound to tracking contest. She had no idea which laws actually applied to games she was playing. Stephanie's next move came with all subtlety of freight train decorated with passive-aggressive ribbon. Hand-delivered invitations appeared at every door, announcing emergency community safety meeting for Saturday afternoon. Invitation featured telephoto shot of me at lake with text, "Protect our community from outside legal predators." From undesirable element to legal predator, I was moving up in world. Meeting promised expert legal presentations and community protection strategies, which translated to, "We're hiring someone expensive to explain why you don't own what you obviously own." Saturday morning brought unexpected knock on cabin door. Richard Morgan from Lot 249 stood on my porch holding manila folder, wearing sheepish expression of man carrying both bad news and good news. Retired attorney, early 70s. Weathered face that comes from decades of courtroom battles. "Mr. Blackwood, I owe you an apology," he said, settling into porch chair with grunt. Morning air carried sweet scent of pine sap, warming in early sunlight. I questioned these water rights when I bought my place in 2019. My realtor told me not to worry about old mining claims that had been properly resolved decades ago. He opened folder, revealing copies of same deed restrictions every homeowner had signed without reading. Same boilerplate language. Same legal loophole. Big enough to drive boat launch through. I should have dug deeper. Richard continued. Reading glasses, catching sun. 41 years as contracts attorney. And I let some kid in polo shirt give me legal advice. That's when he explained something that made my coffee taste like victory. He'd spent Friday night researching Western water law, particularly prior appropriation doctrine, governing who gets what when water's involved. First, in time. First in right. Great-grandfather's 1924 claim didn't just predate HOA, it trumped everything that came after by federal law. But here's the beautiful part. Richard said, adverse possession requires hostile, open, and notorious use of someone else's property. You can't steal something you never had legal right to touch. HOA hasn't been establishing ownership rights for 38 years. They've been trespassing. Richard offered to review my documentation pro bono, partly from guilt, partly because he was fascinated by what he called most slam-dunk water rights case in 4 decades of practice, armed with legal firepower. I implemented what Richard termed aggressive passive resistance. Starting Monday, I began daily lake visits at 6 a.m. sharp, folding chair, coffee thermos, fishing gear, surveying equipment spread out like I was conducting world's most thorough property assessment. Crunch of my truck tires on gravel became Stephanie's personal alarm clock. Every interaction with security got documented. Timestamps, photos, GPS coordinates. Tyler, the college guard, grew increasingly uncomfortable with intimidation duties, especially after he started asking about surveying careers between awkward attempts at authority. Ms. Caldwell called 5 times before 7 a.m. Tyler confided during my second week, steam rising from his coffee cup in crisp mountain air. She wanted to know if you were planning anything suspicious. I told her you were mostly reading book about fish. Smell of my campfire coffee mixing with mountain pine seemed to personally offend Stephanie, who started appearing every few days to glare at me through designer sunglasses costing more than my truck. One crisp morning, she finally snapped. This harassment has to stop, she announced, click-clacking across rocky beach in heels that had no business near actual wilderness. Her hiking outfit looked fresh from REI catalog. Tags probably still attached. I looked up from thermos. Steam rising in cool air. Ma'am, I'm sitting quietly on my own property. How exactly am I harassing anyone? This isn't your property. Actually, it is. I gestured toward surveying transit setup to document exact boundary markers. I'm mapping precise coordinates described in my 1924 deed. Would you like to see GPS readings? Her face cycled through several color changes before settling on shade matching her burgundy Lexus interior. That's when Deputy Martinez arrived, responding to her frantic call about ongoing trespassing and intimidation by dangerous individual. I handed him my deed. Richard's legal summary. 3 weeks of documentation proving I'd been nothing but polite and lawful. Deputy studied everything. Glanced at Stephanie. Then back at me. Ma'am, this gentleman has every legal right to be here. In fact, your HOA might want to consult with legal counsel about restricting access to someone else's property. Stephanie stormed off, heels stabbing earth like she was personally offended by its existence, muttering about incompetent law enforcement and people who don't understand community standards. But real victory was happening behind scenes. Someone had anonymously created Emerald Shore's Truth on Facebook, posting leaked meeting minutes showing board confusion about water rights. 5 members had quietly resigned rather than face legal liability. Community was fracturing. Stephanie's iron grip was slipping. Sometimes best strategy is giving opponent enough rope while you document every knot they tie. Stephanie's desperation hit rock bottom when I arrived for morning coffee to find construction crews dumping gravel directly onto my traditional lake access point. Emergency shoreline stabilization. Foreman mumbled, avoiding eye contact, hands shaking slightly. Never good sign when someone's explaining why they're destroying your property. HOA board authorized it for erosion control. Erosion control. Kind of erosion problem that mysteriously appeared same week I started asserting water rights. Massive decorative boulders now blocked vehicle access, positioned with surgical precision of someone trying to make permanent barriers look like landscaping. Acrid smell of diesel exhaust choked mountain air that had been pristine for centuries, while bulldozers scraped away shoreline that had never needed stabilization before, but Stephanie had just made mistake that would destroy her. My surveyor's training kicked in immediately. They'd bulldozed through protected wetland areas where 3 mountain streams fed lake. Native cattails lay crushed under tire tracks. Fresh fill material had been dumped into federally protected habitat. I called state fish and wildlife from my truck, describing environmental destruction in real time. Inspector Janet Kowalski arrived 90 minutes later with equipment sophisticated enough to detect crimes from space. Her face went pale as she surveyed damage. Taking photographs and GPS readings with methodical precision of someone building federal case, $60,000 violation minimum, she said. Voice tight with professional anger. 7,500 daily penalties until full restoration. Plus, I'm referring this to Army Corps of Engineers for potential criminal charges. Sweet, earthy smell of crushed cattail stems would haunt my dreams for weeks. Here's what Stephanie didn't understand about environmental law. Corporate protection disappears when board members authorize willful destruction of protected habitat. Personal liability. Personal assets, personal consequences, but real game changer came from unexpected ally, Marcus Reed, grizzled fishing guide who'd worked these waters for 28 years. Approached me that afternoon with offer that would change everything. Never seen any paper saying they own this water, he drawled. Weathered hands gesturing toward lake. Always wondered what gave them right to fence off God's creation. Marcus offered boat access for documentation. His intimate knowledge of every underwater rock and hidden cove proved invaluable. From his pontoon boat, we photographed construction damage from angles crews thought were safe from scrutiny. That there's spawning habitat, he pointed out, showing areas where gravel runoff was clouding previously crystal clear shallows. Took Mother Nature 50 years to build that ecosystem. These folks destroyed it in 4 hours. 4 homeowners finally found courage to approach me privately. Terrified of HOA retaliation, but desperate to understand their legal exposure. One leaked that emergency board meetings were happening almost nightly. Environmental restoration costs, triggering panic about special assessments exceeding $1,500 per household. HOA's insurance company was already distancing themselves from willful environmental violations. That's when Stephanie made her most spectacular miscalculation yet. She contacted Channel 9 News, positioning herself as victim of environmental terrorism and harassment by outside agitators. She invited reporter Elena Vasquez to film their peaceful community under siege. Interview was scheduled for Thursday morning. Environmental Inspector Kowalski's surprise compliance visit was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. They arrived simultaneously. Elena Vasquez showed up with cameraman, immediately asking pointed questions about construction permits while Stephanie posed in perfectly coordinated lakeside outfit. When Inspector Kowalski appeared mid-interview to serve federal violation notices, Stephanie's live television meltdown became legendary. "This is persecution." She screamed at camera while Inspector calmly explained wetlands law. "We're protecting our property values from predators and terrorists." Footage went viral within hours, entitled "HOA President Melts Down During Federal Environmental Investigation." 73,000 views in 3 days. Mostly people sharing it with comments like, "Karen gets owned by Mother Nature's lawyers." But real pressure was building behind closed doors. HOA meeting attendance exploded, from 26 regulars to 107 furious homeowners demanding answers. Legal fees exceeding $87,000, and climbing, environmental fines approaching 6 figures. Property values dropping as negative publicity spread. Motion for no confidence against entire board scheduled for annual meeting. Smell of desperation in those packed meeting rooms was thick enough to cut with surveyor's machete. Security footage from that week shows Stephanie arriving at Lake multiple times, sitting in her Lexus, staring at water like she was trying to will my rights out of existence. She was running out of legal options, which meant she was about to start making illegal choices. And illegal choices leave evidence trails that surveyors are very good at following. Nuclear option was looking more inevitable. Every day. Richard's phone call at 6:49 a.m. carried breathless excitement of treasure hunter who just struck gold. Connor. Courthouse. Now, I found something that doesn't just change game. It ends it. 20 minutes later, I stood in Archives' basement watching Richard spread documents across metal table like general planning final assault. Familiar smell of old paper and mildew mixed with something new. Electric scent of victory. Look at this 1987 incorporation filing. Richard said, finger trembling slightly as he traced crucial lines. Summit Vista Properties never transferred water rights to HOA because they never owned them. He pulled out thick folder of financial records, pages rustling like whispered secrets in fluorescent gloom. Lake access fees, $2,400 per homeowner per year for 38 consecutive years. Calculator on my phone couldn't process numbers that large. 892 homeowners times 2,400 times 38 years. We weren't looking at simple trespassing anymore. We were staring at approximately $81 million in systematic fraud. Every monthly payment is separate count. Richard continued. Contract attorney instincts, dissecting legal carnage. Ongoing fraudulent scheme means no statute of limitations. They've been selling access to your property for nearly 4 decades. Basement air felt charged, like moment before lightning strikes. My hands shook as I held evidence. This wasn't just about surveyor defending inheritance anymore. This was about entire community built on foundation of theft. Hundreds of families who'd unknowingly paid for something never legally available for sale. Jesus. Richard. I could bankrupt every one of them. You could. He agreed, leaning back in chair with satisfied expression. Personal liability for board members who knew or should have known. Restitution claims stripping equity from every home. Civil RICO charges for organized fraud. Taste of copper filled my mouth as full implications hit. I didn't just own water rights anymore. I owned their entire way of life. Every dock, every boat launch, every lakefront barbecue existed because I allowed it. One lawsuit could turn 892 luxury homes into worthless boxes sitting beside water they couldn't touch. But staring at those documents, feeling weight of great-grandfather's legacy and responsibility it carried, I realized something that surprised me. Destruction would be easy. Justice would be harder. These weren't all wealthy predators trying to steal from my family. Many were retirees who trusted real estate agents and HOA leadership to handle complexities they never understood. People who'd paid fees believing they were buying legitimate lake access, not funding elaborate theft operation. "What's your move?" Richard asked, studying my face as moral complexity wrestled with righteous anger. Smart play was obvious. Leverage this discovery for maximum financial gain. Demand everything. Destroy everyone. Walk away wealthy from decades of fraudulent payments. But sitting there, surrounded by evidence of institutional corruption, breathing air thick with possibility of either revenge or redemption, I chose different path. I want Stephanie to hang herself publicly. I told Richard, let her dig deeper while we prepare perfect resolution, something that exposes fraud, protects my rights, and saves community from corrupt leadership. Richard's smile was sharp as surveyor's blade. You want to be hero who saves them from villain they never recognized. At annual meeting, with witnesses, cameras, and whole truth. Because sometimes best revenge isn't destruction. Sometimes it's showing everyone exactly who deserves to be destroyed while you become solution they never knew they needed. Nuclear option just evolved into something far more powerful. Justice with audience. Richard's law office smelled like expensive leather and successful victories. We're not building legal case, Richard said, spreading evidence across mahogany table. We're orchestrating public education event that destroys Stephanie's credibility. Janet Kowalski arrived carrying boxes of environmental violation paperwork. Her wetlands expertise had triggered federal interest. When EPA investigators return calls within hours, someone's in serious trouble. Our strategy wasn't overwhelming force. It was surgical precision. Our plan had 3 phases, letting Stephanie dig her own grave while we offered community a ladder out. Phase 1, documentation overload. Richard filed complaints with State Attorney General, EPA, County Water Board, and IRS. When multiple departments investigate simultaneously, they compete to find worst violations. Becomes bureaucratic feeding frenzy. Phase 2, strategic patience. Environmental fines accumulated like payday loan interest. 6 figures, and climbing with daily penalties. HOA legal expenses blew past $112,000. But here's beautiful part. When board members personally authorize destruction of federally protected habitat, corporate protection evaporates. Stephanie's signature was on work orders, stripping equity from her own mansion. Phase 3, grand finale, at annual meeting with maximum witnesses. From my surveying trailer, I'd assembled presentation system making NASA jealous. Digital evidence in multiple clouds. Trail cameras providing 24/7 documentation. GPS mapping, proving decades of trespassing with surveyor-grade precision. Annual meeting scheduled for Saturday, October 19th. All homeowners required to attend. Elena Vasquez confirmed to Cover Story. Environmental inspectors presenting violation findings. Sheriff deputies providing security doubling as law enforcement witnesses. Meanwhile, I maintained morning lake ritual with dedication of monk performing daily prayers. 6 M. Coffee. Surveying equipment setup. Polite documentation of every interaction. Crunch of my truck tires on gravel had become Stephanie's personal torture device. Her sleep-deprived paranoia becoming neighborhood entertainment. Tyler. The college security guard had given up any pretense of intimidation, started bringing environmental science textbooks to work. Smart kid, figured out which side of history he wanted to be on. Ms. Caldwell called 9 times before noon yesterday. Tyler confided, steam rising from coffee cup in crisp morning air. She wanted to know if you were planning suspicious activities for meeting. I told her you were mostly feeding ducks and reading poetry. Smell of autumn leaves, mixing with lake water, carried promise of change. October mornings in mountains have clarity, cutting through everything like laser through fog. Perfect weather for revealing 38 years of hidden truth. Stephanie was spiraling into increasingly desperate measures, which meant increasingly documented mistakes. She'd started interrogating neighbors about loyalty to community values, creating paranoid atmosphere, turning neighbors into enemies. 7 board members had now quietly resigned rather than face personal environmental liability. HOA was operating with skeleton leadership while facing maximum legal exposure from multiple federal agencies. Everything was aligned for what Richard called controlled demolition of institutional corruption. October 19th was approaching like Christmas morning for adults who'd been very good all year. Stephanie had spent nearly 4 decades building empire on my family's stolen foundation. Time to show 892 homeowners exactly how their trusted leadership had been systematically robbing them while destroying pristine environment they'd paid premium prices to preserve. House of Cards was about to meet hurricane named Truth. Stephanie's desperation reached fever pitch when she discovered my morning routine and decided to weaponize construction equipment as psychological warfare. I arrived at 5:30 a.m. to find emergency dock maintenance crews setting up directly in my usual coffee spot, complete with diesel generators, floodlights bright enough to illuminate football stadium, power tools that could wake dead 3 counties over. Foreman, weathered guy named Paul Henderson, looked genuinely uncomfortable as he explained situation. Ma'am says we got to start early for safety reasons, he said, gesturing helplessly at equipment positioned with surgical precision to make my life miserable. Something about preventing interference with community operations. Community operations at 5:30 a.m., right where I'd been peacefully drinking coffee for 7 weeks. But Paul's discomfort told story that would soon become crucial evidence. Look, I don't know what's going on between you and HOA, lady, he said quietly, glancing towards Stephanie's Lexus parked at safe distance. But this feels wrong. You know, that's when Paul dropped bombshell that would later prove invaluable in court. Stephanie had offered his crew cash bonus. Off books. No paperwork. For making my daily visits as difficult as possible. She'd specifically instructed them to position equipment blocking my access. Run generators during that trespasser's coffee time. Report any suspicious activities directly to her personal cell phone. Paul showed me text messages. Screenshots of Stephanie's increasingly unhinged instructions, including gems like make sure he understands he's not welcome and use whatever noise necessary to discourage loitering. Sweet smell of morning pine was obliterated by diesel exhaust, burning my nostrils and coating everything with greasy film. But every roaring generator was creating documented evidence of harassment, strengthening eventual legal case. Environmental violations were escalating beyond anyone's control. State Inspector Kowalski arrived unannounced to find active construction violating previous cease and desist order. Fines jumped to $147,000 plus mandatory restoration costs, requiring specialized environmental contractors charging premium rates. Criminal charges were now officially possible for willful destruction of protected habitat. But real pressure was building in community itself. Special assessments had increased to $1,800 per homeowner just for legal and environmental costs. With more increases inevitable, 16 homeowners had already put properties up for sale rather than pay, creating mini real estate crisis, tanking property values. HOA was facing potential bankruptcy. Everyone knew it. Meanwhile, my strategic patience was paying dividends. I continued morning routine despite harassment, documenting every violation with GPS time-stamped photos, audio recordings of Stephanie's shouted instructions to contractors, video evidence of equipment deliberately positioned to obstruct legal property access, never responded to provocation, always remained polite to workers, obviously uncomfortable with orders, built sympathy among everyone witnessing increasingly desperate harassment campaign. Paul Henderson became unexpected ally when Stephanie pushed too far. She wanted us to accidentally damage your truck. He told me during quiet moment when she'd stepped away to call someone, told us to position excavators so your vehicle couldn't get out, then claim it was coincidental equipment placement that crossed line from harassment into potential criminal territory. Paul started documenting Stephanie's illegal instructions for his own legal protection, creating paper trail, proving conspiracy to commit property damage and intentional interference with legal property rights. Sound of Stephanie's heels stabbing gravel became morning alarm clock for entire neighborhood. She'd arrive at dawn, position herself like general commanding troops, spend hours directing what could only be described as organized harassment disguised as routine maintenance. Her paranoia was becoming visible to everyone. 4 more board members resigned. Citing concerns about leadership direction and personal legal liability, HOA was operating with minimal oversight while facing maximum legal exposure from multiple government agencies. Elena Vasquez published follow-up article about environmental violations, including photos of Stephanie directing construction activities in federally protected wetlands. Headline: HOA President doubles down on environmental destruction. Shared over 11,000 times on social media. Property values had dropped 9% in 4 weeks due to negative publicity and legal uncertainty. Exclusive Paradise homeowners had paid premium prices to join, was becoming cautionary tale about institutional overreach. But Stephanie wasn't done. Her next escalation would prove that desperate people make increasingly stupid choices, and stupid choices create permanent evidence-building, bulletproof legal cases. She was about to cross lines, transforming harassment into criminal activity, all while being documented by someone who understood exactly how evidence works in court. Annual meeting was 3 weeks away. Stephanie was systematically destroying every remaining shred of credibility, while I continued being a reasonable person trying to peacefully enjoy inherited property. Sometimes best strategy is just standing still while opponent runs headfirst into every possible legal obstacle. Stephanie's final gambit was masterclass in how to destroy yourself using social media and absolute desperation. It started with fake Facebook accounts. Connor Blackwood is dangerous predator targeting our peaceful community. Read one post from concerned Emerald resident. Another account, lakefront property owner, shared evidence of unstable behavior and threats against innocent families. Posts multiplied like virus, each one more unhinged than last, painting me as everything from financial scammer to potential terrorist using legal technicalities to steal from hardworking families. But Stephanie made critical mistake. She wasn't nearly as clever with technology as she thought. Elena Vasquez, reporter tracking this story, received anonymous tips about fake accounts from someone in community disgusted with harassment campaign. Basic digital investigation traced every single fake profile back to same IP address. Stephanie's home internet connection. Elena's follow-up article, HOA President creates fake social media accounts to defame property owner, included screenshots showing accounts creation timeline, posting patterns, an IP forensics reading like digital fingerprint pointing directly at Stephanie's lakefront mansion. Story went viral regionally within hours. Emerald Shore's Karen began trending on Twitter. People sharing most ridiculous fake posts alongside commentary about entitled HOA presidents who'd completely lost their minds. But community revolt was even more dramatic than media attention. Emergency meetings were being called by homeowners, not bored. 103 residents had signed petition demanding Stephanie's immediate resignation and complete audit of HOA finances. Facebook group Emerald Shore's Truth now had over 400 members. Sharing leaked documents, expressing outrage about mounting legal costs. Quorum was being lost at official meetings because board members simply refused to show up. Terrified of personal liability for environmental violations, increasingly convinced Stephanie had lost her mind completely. Smell of desperation was thick as diesel exhaust during those packed emergency meetings. Homeowners were threatening to withhold HOA dues until leadership changed, which would trigger immediate bankruptcy. Make individual homeowners personally liable for environmental fines and legal costs. Community was fracturing along lines, making neighborhood barbecues feel like peace negotiations. Meanwhile, I was putting finishing touches on my presentation for annual meeting. Now, just days away, Richard had assembled visual timeline showing 38 years of fraudulent water rights claims, complete with financial calculations making every homeowner simultaneously furious and terrified. Environmental violations were documented with before and after photography, looking like evidence from environmental crime scene. Janet had prepared federal law presentations explaining how environmental destruction carried personal liability, stripping board members' personal assets, including their own lakefront homes. But my secret weapon was Paul Henderson, a contractor who'd been documenting Stephanie's increasingly illegal instructions, his testimony about cash bonuses for harassment, orders to damage my property, and conspiracy to obstruct legal access would provide eyewitness evidence of criminal behavior. County Sheriff's Department had agreed to provide security for meeting, which meant law enforcement witnesses for everything that happened. Elena Vasquez was confirmed to attend with photographer, turning annual meeting into most documented HOA proceeding in Colorado history. Environmental Inspector Kowalski would present findings about willful wetlands destruction, adding federal authority to what was shaping up to be Stephanie's public trial 4 days before meeting. Stephanie made her most spectacular mistake yet. She attempted to cancel annual meeting entirely, claiming security concerns about outside agitators disrupting community proceedings. When Sheriff Deputy Martinez arrived to investigate reports of HOA officials preventing legal access to required annual meeting, he found Stephanie physically blocking community center entrance, screaming about protecting our community from terrorist infiltration. Incident was recorded by multiple homeowners' cell phones, immediately uploaded to Emerald Shore's Truth Facebook group. Watching suburban HOA president have complete mental breakdown while being gently but firmly moved away from door by patient sheriff's deputy was content making local news stations cancel other programming. Community center was packed beyond legal capacity on October 19th. 374 homeowners, plus media, environmental officials, law enforcement. Enough folding chairs borrowed from neighboring communities to seat small political convention. Tension in that room was so thick you could have surveyed it with precision instruments. Stephanie arrived in her Lexus like she was attending coronation instead of professional execution. And that's when I first really saw her as more than just voice on phone and papers and mail. She wore a blazer catching late afternoon sun streaming through community center windows. Crimson red. Fitted perfectly to her frame, emphasizing her tall, commanding presence despite obvious exhaustion etched around her eyes. She draped it casually off her shoulders to reveal black silk blouse with V-neck, somehow managing to be both professional and deliberately calculated. Like every other choice she'd made, the vibrant crimson color demanded attention against neutral community center walls, bold, unapologetic. Designed to project authority she no longer possessed. Her pencil skirt matched black top, cut with subtle slit, allowing movement without sacrificing severe professional line. Red patent leather heels clicked against linoleum with each step completely impractical, but making statement about confidence and control she was desperately trying to maintain. Everything about appearance screamed calculated precision, money and power wrapped in suburban respectability. Her platinum blonde hair fell in styled waves just past shoulders. Professional, but soft enough to seem approachable. Though closer inspection showed roots beginning to show, first crack in otherwise perfect facade. And those lips, glossed in deep crimson matching her blazer, formed words designed to reassure a room full of people who no longer believed anything she said. But something was off. Small things most people wouldn't notice. Her right hand kept touching her throat. Nervous tick I'd never seen in our previous confrontations. 3 times in 5 minutes. Blazer hung slightly wrong on left shoulder. Not much, just enough. When she thought no one was looking, she bit inside of her cheek. Breathing was shallow, quick, kind that comes before panic sets in. These weren't movements of someone in complete control. These were movements of someone barely holding on. Apparently convinced one final presentation would somehow restore credibility and authority. She had no idea everyone in that room had already seen evidence that would destroy not just her presidency, but potentially her personal freedom. For 20 minutes, Stephanie rambled about outside agitators, frivolous legal challenges, and protecting property values through strong leadership. She presented falsified documents attempting to prove HOA ownership of water rights, completely ignoring federal laws making such ownership impossible. Several homeowners walked out in disgust. Others started openly laughing when she claimed environmental violations were minor technical issues blown out of proportion by radical environmentalists. That's when Environmental Inspector Kowalski stood up. "Ma'am, I need to correct several factual errors in your presentation," she announced. Official credentials giving weight to words that would crush Stephanie's narrative. Violations documented at this site constitute willful destruction of federally protected wetlands. We're talking about criminal charges, not technical issues. Room went silent except for sound of Elena Vasquez's photographer capturing every expression of shock and horror. Inspector Kowalski presented timeline documentation showing escalating environmental destruction. Fines exceeding $223,000. Federal referrals for potential criminal prosecution. Every homeowner in that room suddenly understood they weren't just facing special assessments. They were potentially complicit in environmental crimes. Then Richard stood up. "I'd like community to see some additional documentation," he announced, walking to front with calm authority of someone who'd spent decades in courtrooms. Specifically, evidence about lake access fees this HOA has been collecting. Projector screen filled with financial records showing 38 years of fraudulent collections. $81 million in fees charged for access to property HOA never owned and had no legal right to provide. Mathematical reality hit room like physical blow. Every homeowner who'd paid those fees had grounds for full restitution. HOA faced potential bankruptcy, making every member personally liable for environmental restoration costs. That's when Stephanie completely lost control. "This is conspiracy," she screamed, jumping up from chair, pointing wildly at Richard, me, and various homeowners who dared ask questions. "You're all working together to destroy our community. She attempted to grab microphone from Richard, leading to undignified struggle captured by multiple cameras. Immediately uploaded to social media, Sheriff Deputy Martinez had seen enough. "Ma'am, you're disrupting lawful assembly," he announced. Approaching Stephanie with patient professionalism, "I need you to calm down or I'll have to escort you outside." "You can't arrest me. I'm president of this HOA. I'm protecting property values." "Ma'am, you're under arrest for disturbing peace." Sight of Stephanie being handcuffed in front of 300 witnesses while screaming about conspiracies and property rights was everything community needed to see. Flashbulbs captured every moment of her complete mental breakdown. But real moment of justice came when I finally stood up. If I could have everyone's attention, I said, voice carrying easily through stunned silence following Stephanie's removal, "I'm Connor Blackwood, and I own water rights to Emerald Lake. I placed great-grandfather's 1924 deed on projector, letting everyone see federal document that had started entire conflict. I could demand full restitution for 38 years of fraudulent fees. I could shut down lake access permanently. I could pursue criminal charges against board members who knowingly collected money for services they couldn't legally provide. Room was so quiet you could hear pine needles falling on roof. Instead, I'm offering solution benefiting everyone. I presented my proposal, 99-year community lease for $1 annually, with conditions including environmental restoration, community fishing access, and public recreation days. Vote was unanimous, 374 to 0. For first time in months, Emerald Lake felt peaceful again. 6 months later, Emerald Lake looked like something from Nature magazine. Environmental restoration had transformed destroyed wetlands into showcase of cooperation. Native cattails swayed in morning breezes. Water ran so clear you could see granite 30 feet down. 143 volunteers showed up for first community cleanup day. Homeowners who'd been terrified of me now brought coffee and cookies while we replanted vegetation. Stephanie's construction had destroyed. Stephanie's legal troubles resolved predictably. Pleaded guilty to environmental violations. Paid $62,000 in fines. Moved away after selling lakefront mansion to cover civil lawsuit settlements. 4 former board members faced personal liability for fraud, eventually settling out of court for amounts making lawyers wealthy and retirement accounts lighter. Real victory was what community built from institutional corruption's ashes. Emerald Shores Environmental Education Center now occupies old HOA office, renovated with solar panels and displays about mountain lake ecology. Local schools bring students for field trips about water rights, environmental protection, and community cooperation. We established annual $7,000 scholarship for environmental science students. 8 kids have received scholarships, including Tyler, former security guard now studying environmental law at Colorado State. Community Fishing Pier was built with wheelchair accessibility and covered pavilions. Monthly public access days bring fishing guides, environmental groups, and families locked out for decades. Property values increased 14% once word spread about collaborative resolution. People pay premium prices to live in community famous for doing right thing. I built modest cabin overlooking lake great-grandfather first saw in 1924. Every morning I drink coffee watching water so peaceful it looks like glass. Listening to loons call across valleys, echoing sounds William Blackwood heard century ago. Richard serves as community's volunteer legal advisor. We've consulted on 16 cases across 4 states, helping resolve disputes through collaboration instead of litigation. Janet turned our restoration into case study used in law schools nationwide. proving creative legal solutions can transform conflicts into community success. HOA was restructured with term limits, financial oversight, and transparency. Monthly meetings focus on actual issues like road maintenance instead of power trips and fraud. Elena won Regional Journalism Award for Investigative Series. Still stops by to check restoration progress and fish from community pier. Best part is what didn't happen. No lawsuits bankrupted innocent homeowners. No families lost houses. No environmental damage became permanent. Community, divided by fear and corruption, found way to heal through truth and collaboration. Great-grandfather's legacy isn't just protected. It's thriving in ways he never imagined. Justice tastes best when shared with neighbors who need it.